The color Barely Beige, the company Benjamin Moore. This is Hue Review, so let's review this good old paint color. Some would argue that Barely Beige is barely a paint color at all, but I beg to differ, because all paint colors are created equal in my mind. This, of course, is The Paint People. I'm James, and this is a channel all about painting, decorating, color, and color theory. Hue Review is where I review paint colors. I'm going to give you the vibe of this color. I'm going to tell you how versatile it is or isn't, and then at the end, I'll give you my verdict on whether I would use this color and how I would use it in my own space. The goal here is to give you practical advice that you can actually use. So let's get into it right now. Today's sponsor is us. ThePaintPeople.com is your go-to destination for quality paint and paint supplies. One of our standout features is our ability to create any color from all major paint brands. And the best part, we deliver across the US and Canada. Visit our website today and discover a world of colors, quality, and convenience. And as a thank you for supporting us on YouTube, use coupon code JAMES5 for 5% off your order. So before I talk about Barely Beige specifically, I want to give you some alternatives from other paint companies. These are going to be close matches. They're going to give you the essence, the overall feel of Barely Beige, but they're not going to be spot-on matches. So don't try and touch up this Sherwin-Williams color on a Barely Beige wall because it won't match perfectly. The only way to get Barely Beige exactly is to get it tinted at your local Benjamin Moore paint store. But I always like to give you some other options from other companies in case your contractor is very anti-Benny Moore. So what's the vibe of Barely Beige? What are you going to get with a color like this? Probably the first time in a while, I think this color is correctly labeled. Barely Beige. A beige that's barely there. And I think that barely-ness of this beige is the fact that it is quite light for a beige. Normally, beiges come at like a 50 or a 60 light reflectance value score, which of course is the percentage of light that a color reflects. But Barely Beige has a 71 LRV. So that is in that lighter echelon of colors. Maybe not quite so light that you would call it a white or even an off-white paint color, but it's getting there. It's pretty light, pretty airy, and overall kind of pretty. Barely Beige is a very subtle approach to beige. It's not going to feel overly heavy-handed with its creaminess. It does have a creamy quality to it. It definitely has a warm undertone of maybe a bit of yellow and a touch of orange. So this nice mix of colors to prevent it from feeling too bright and vibrant. It has a lovely softness to it, which I think is pretty good. Versatility-wise, how easy to use is this color inside and outside your home? Interior-wise, Barely Beige gets a high versatility for me. I think it's such a nice combination of being warm, neutral, soft, but also not too saturated where it could pull focus in a weird way. Less is more with Barely Beige, and I think there's a lot of interior design styles that could utilize this color really effectively. On the exterior side of things, I would put Barely Beige at a mid versatility. I think it's great outside for all of those same reasons. Personally, I just tend to prefer colors that are a little more saturated when used outside because exterior colors can feel washed out. So anything that is very subtle and nuanced, it's probably just going to look like an off-white or something because of the bright sun hitting it. Maybe something with a little more richness within the same family. Maybe if Barely Beige was more just beige, it would probably score a bit higher on the exterior side of things. I still think it's a solid color to consider for your exterior projects. Okay, so what's my verdict? How would I use this color and would I actually consider using it in my home? The way that I like to classify colors is along the Paint People palette pyramid. So at the top, you have main colors, you have your secondary support colors, and then you have your accent finishing colors down below. I would put Barely Beige as a main color. I think this is a paint color that you can use as the crux of your entire color palette. It could be the only color you end up using, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of landlords that maybe just stick with Barely Beige as their go-to choice. And that's because I think it's just a pleasant color. It's not going to really irk anyone. It's good in a lot of situations, I feel. A very usable color that you can have just pretty much anywhere in your home. Now, before I give you my verdict on whether I would use this color myself, I'll give you some color pairings that are kind of in the same family, but just give you 3 levels of depth. Cloud White would be my coordinating white paint color. It doesn't quite so much have that orange little tinge that Barely Beige has, but Cloud White does feel like a nice, slightly creamy white that just works perfectly with Barely Beige. There's also enough contrast between the two where you can tell the difference. So if Cloud White's on your trim, You have Barely Beige on your walls. They're going to pop off one another really nicely. And in terms of a darker color that's sort of in that same wheelhouse, Squire Hill Buff would be my choice. And this one, you do see a little more of that orange undertone coming through. Still that yellow kind of gold base as well. More of a deep beige, I guess a more traditional beige that you would think of on the walls. This one will give you more saturation. Barely Beige would kind of sit in between this and Cloud White for me. So that's how I would use it. But would I? Yes, Barely Beige is a color I would definitely use, or at least consider using, as an alternative to my current main color if I wanted something that was a little more warm-centric, a little more leaning into that beigey vibe. And I really think I could see myself going in that direction at some point. So Barely Beige, thumbs up for me. If you want to see a color palette pyramid utilizing Barely Beige, comment down below and it might get featured this Sunday on the channel. So let me know. That's a review. We got another one right over here.